My girlfriend's mom is a gold digger trying to scam me for my money.
Hey Reddit, I'm Alex, 32, and I've been dating my girlfriend, Jessica, 28, for about 2 years now. She's the love of my life, and everything seemed perfect until her mother, Lisa, 55, entered the picture. At first, I thought Lisa was just protective of her daughter, but it quickly became clear that she was after something else, my money.
She's a classic gold digger, always scheming and manipulating, trying to get her hands on whatever she can.
This is the story of how Lisa tried to tear Jessica and me apart and how I fought back to protect both my relationship and my financial future. Before Lisa became a constant source of tension in my life, there was Jessica. We met at a work conference 2 years ago, and from the moment I saw her, I was smitten. Jessica was smart, funny, and had a way of making everyone around her feel at ease. She worked in marketing, and I was in tech, so we didn't have much overlap in our careers, but we clicked instantly.
The early days, falling in love. Jessica and I started dating not long after we met.
Our first few dates were like something out of a movie: dinners at cozy little restaurants, long walks through the city, and late-night talks that lasted until the early hours of the morning. We bonded over our shared love of travel, good food, and, surprisingly, our mutual obsession with old crime dramas.
Jessica had a calmness about her that balanced my more intense, driven personality.
She was patient when I got caught up in work, and I appreciated how supportive she was of my ambitions. I knew early on that I wanted to be with her long term. She was the kind of person who made life better just by being in it. We spent weekends hiking, trying out new recipes, and watching documentaries.
Jessica loved animals, so we often volunteered at a local shelter together. Everything felt easy and natural with her.
I wasn't used to that kind of relationship. I'd been in a few messy ones before, but with Jessica, things just seemed to fall into place.
It wasn't long before we started talking about moving in together. My financial success and Jessica's down-to-earth nature. I should probably mention that I've done pretty well for myself financially.
I'm a software engineer, and I started working for a tech startup right out of college. Over the years, I rose through the ranks, eventually getting stock options that paid off when the company went public. By the time I met Jessica, I was financially secure, had a nice apartment in the city, and wasn't too worried about money. I lived comfortably but not extravagantly. Sure, I had a nice car and liked to take nice vacations, but I didn't flaunt my wealth. Jessica, on the other hand, was refreshingly down-to-earth. She wasn't materialistic at all, and that's one of the things that attracted me to her. She worked hard in her marketing job, lived in a modest apartment with a roommate, and was perfectly content grabbing takeout and watching Netflix at home rather than going out to expensive dinners every weekend. We complemented each other. She kept me grounded, and I showed her how to enjoy the finer things in life without going overboard.
Everything was perfect between us, or so I thought. But as we grew closer, I started hearing more and more about Jessica's mom, Lisa. Meeting the family, first impressions of Lisa.
After about 6 months of dating, Jessica invited me to meet her mom, Lisa. Jessica's dad wasn't in the picture. He had left when she was a kid, and from what I understood, Lisa had raised Jessica on her own. Jessica always spoke highly of her mom, talking about how hard she worked and how much she had sacrificed for them to have a decent life. I admired that, and I was eager to meet the woman who had raised the person I was falling in love with.
We drove to Lisa's house one Sunday afternoon.
It was a modest place in a quiet neighborhood, nothing fancy, but cozy in a way that made it feel lived in. Lisa greeted us at the door with a warm smile, offering us lemonade and cookies she had made earlier.
At first glance, she seemed sweet and friendly, if a bit overbearing.
She hugged Jessica tightly, almost possessively, and gave me a long, scrutinizing look before inviting us inside.
During that first visit, Lisa seemed pleasant enough.
She made small talk, asking me about my job, my family, and how I liked living in the city. She had an air of charm about her, but something about her felt off. There was an intensity behind her eyes that I couldn't quite place, like she was sizing me up for something.
Still, I didn't think too much of it at the time.
I figured she was just being protective of her daughter. After all, Jessica was her only child, and it made sense that she'd want to know more about the man in her life. But as we spent more time with Lisa, I started to notice little things that made me uncomfortable. She would make casual comments about money, asking me how much I made or what kind of car I drove. At first, I brushed it off, thinking she was just curious, but the questions kept coming.
"Oh, you work in tech? That must pay really well, right?" she'd say with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Or, "That's a nice watch. It looks expensive. Did Jessica buy it for you?" Jessica didn't seem to notice the questions, or if she did, she didn't think much of them. She adored her mom and always gave her the benefit of the doubt, chalking up her nosiness to just being a mom. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Lisa was more interested in my bank account than in getting to know me as a person. As Jessica and I got more serious, so did Lisa's interest in my finances. At first, it was subtle little comments here and there about money, compliments on my nice car, or remarks about how lucky Jessica was to be with someone successful. But over time, Lisa's behavior became more blatant, and I started to see her true colors. The first big ask, a loan for Lisa. It started with a request for a loan. About a year into my relationship with Jessica, we were having dinner at Lisa's house when she suddenly brought up some financial trouble she was having. "I hate to ask this," she said, glancing at me, "but I'm a little short on cash right now. My car needs repairs, and I don't have the money to fix it." I felt Jessica stiffen beside me, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. I could tell she didn't want to put me on the spot, but before I could say anything, Lisa continued, "It's just a temporary thing. I'll pay you back as soon as I can. You know how hard it is for a single mom to make ends meet." I was caught off guard. It wasn't that I couldn't afford to help at this point. I had a good job and a decent amount of savings, but something about the way Lisa asked felt wrong. It was like she assumed I'd say yes, like she expected me to bail her out just because I was dating her daughter. I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Jessica quickly jumped in, trying to defuse the situation. "Mom, we can talk about this later," she said, giving me an apologetic look. "I don't think this is the right time." Lisa waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, nonsense. We're family now, aren't we? Alex is practically my son-in-law. He won't mind helping out." That comment made my skin crawl. I barely knew Lisa, and here she was, acting like I owed her something just because I was dating her daughter. I politely declined, saying that I wasn't comfortable lending money at this point, but I could help her find a good mechanic who might offer a payment plan. Lisa's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered, brushing off my refusal with a laugh. "Oh, I understand," she said, though her eyes told a different story. "I just thought I'd ask. You know how it is." After that, the atmosphere at dinner was tense, and I could tell Jessica was embarrassed by the whole situation. On the way home, she apologized profusely, saying that her mom had never asked for money like that before and promising it wouldn't happen again. I wanted to believe her, but deep down, I had a feeling this was just the beginning. The manipulation begins. Lisa plays the victim. Over the next few months, Lisa's behavior became more manipulative. She started dropping hints about her financial struggles every time we saw her. "It's been so hard to keep up with the bills," she'd say with a sigh, or "I don't know how I'm going to pay for the house repairs." It was always something, a broken appliance, a medical bill, or an unexpected expense, and she always made sure to mention it in front of me. At first, I tried to be sympathetic. I knew that being a single mom couldn't have been easy, and I didn't want to seem heartless. But the more Lisa played the victim, the more it felt like she was trying to guilt me into giving her money. She'd make comments about how lucky Jessica was to be with someone who could provide for her, or how she wished she had been able to find a man who could take care of her the way I took care of Jessica. Jessica, bless her heart, was oblivious to her mom's manipulations. She loved her mom and saw her as a strong, independent woman who had done the best she could with what life had thrown at her. I didn't want to come between them, so I kept my concerns to myself, hoping that Lisa would eventually back off. But she didn't. In fact, she only became more brazen. One day, Lisa invited us over for dinner, claiming she had a surprise for me. I was hesitant, given the way things had been going, but Jessica was excited, so I agreed to go. When we arrived, Lisa greeted us with her usual warmth, and after dinner, she pulled out a small gift box and handed it to me. "I know how much you've done for Jessica," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. so I wanted to give you something to show my appreciation. I opened the box to find a set of expensive-looking cufflinks. They were nice, too nice, in fact. I thanked Lisa, though I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a catch. Sure enough, a few days later, Lisa called Jessica, asking if she could borrow a few $100s to cover an unexpected expense. When Jessica mentioned the call to me, I couldn't help but feel like the cufflinks had been a setup, a way to make me feel obligated to give her money in return. It was a classic manipulation tactic, and I didn't appreciate being played. I told Jessica that I didn't think we should give her mom money, but she was torn. "I don't want to leave her in a tough spot," Jessica said. "She's always been there for me, and I feel like I owe her." That was exactly what Lisa wanted. She had conditioned Jessica to feel like she owed her something, and now she was trying to extend that manipulation to me. I told Jessica that we needed to set boundaries with her mom, but she was reluctant. It was clear that Lisa had a hold on her, and I wasn't sure how to break it. As time went on, Lisa's attempts to get money from me became more and more blatant. She started calling me directly, asking for favors that were always related to money. It was clear that she saw me as a meal ticket, and I was getting fed up. But the real turning point came when Lisa came up with her biggest scheme yet, a plan that would put my relationship with Jessica to the test. The investment scheme. One afternoon, Lisa invited Jessica and me to lunch at a fancy restaurant downtown. I should have known something was up. Lisa never invited us to places like that, and it seemed out of character for her to suggest such an expensive outing. As we sat down, Lisa launched into a story about a business opportunity she had recently come across. She told us about a friend of hers who had started a real estate investment group, and how she had been given the chance to invest in a luxury condo development. According to Lisa, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and she was convinced that it would make her rich. "There's just one problem," she said with a sigh, glancing at me. "I don't have the capital to invest on my own. But if we pool our resources, we could all get in on the ground floor." I could see where this was going. Lisa was trying to get me to invest in her scheme, and I wasn't having it. "That sounds like a risky investment," I said cautiously. "I don't think I'm comfortable putting my money into something like that." Lisa's face fell, but she quickly recovered, turning her attention to Jessica. "Sweetheart, don't you want to secure your future? Think about it, if this pays off, we could all be set for life. You could quit your job, travel, do whatever you want." Jessica looked uncomfortable, glancing between Lisa and me. She clearly didn't want to disappoint her mom, but she wasn't fully on board with the idea either. "I don't know, Mom," she said hesitantly. "It sounds a little too good to be true." Lisa's smile faltered, and I could see the frustration building in her eyes. She wasn't used to being told no, and it was clear that she wasn't going to let this go easily. The guilt trip. For the next few weeks, Lisa doubled down on her efforts to get us to invest in her scheme. She called constantly, sending us articles about the amazing potential of the real estate market and talking about how this was her last chance to secure a comfortable retirement. She even started playing the victim, telling Jessica that she had sacrificed so much for her and that she deserved to have a comfortable life in her later years. It was manipulative, and I could see the toll it was taking on Jessica. She felt torn between her loyalty to her mom and her sense of responsibility to our future. I tried to reassure her that we didn't owe Lisa anything, but it was hard for Jessica to see it that way. She had been conditioned for years to put her mom's needs above her own, and now Lisa was trying to do the same thing with me. One night, after a particularly emotional phone call with Lisa, Jessica broke down in tears. "I don't know what to do," she said, wiping her eyes. "I love my mom, but I hate the way she's putting pressure on us. I don't want to disappoint her, but I also don't want to put our future at risk." I hugged Jessica, trying to comfort her. "You don't owe her anything," I said softly. "She's manipulating you. We need to set boundaries, for our own sake." Jessica nodded, but I could tell it was hard for her to accept. Lisa had spent years convincing her that they were a team, that Jessica owed her for all the sacrifices she had made. It wasn't going to be easy to break that cycle. After months of dealing with Lisa's manipulations, I knew it was time to confront her. I couldn't stand by and watch her continue to guilt-trip Jessica into doing things that weren't in our best interest.
It was time to put a stop to it, once and for all.
The final straw, the ultimatum. The breaking point came when Lisa showed up at our apartment unannounced.
Jessica and I were having a quiet night in, watching a movie, when there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Lisa standing there, looking upset.
"I need to talk to you," she said, pushing past me into the living room.
Jessica and I exchanged glances, both of us caught off guard by her sudden appearance.
"What's going on, Mom?" Jessica asked, concern in her voice.
Lisa took a deep breath and launched into another guilt-laden monologue about how much she had done for Jessica over the years, how hard her life had been, and how she deserved a break. But this time, she took it a step further.
"I'm sorry, but if you two aren't going to help me with this investment, I don't know how we can continue to have a relationship," Lisa said, her voice shaky with emotion. "I've given up everything for you, Jessica, and I'm not asking for much. I just need a little help. If you can't support me now, I don't know if I can be part of your life anymore." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lisa was giving Jessica an ultimatum: either give her money or lose her as a mother. It was manipulative, toxic, and cruel. Jessica looked stunned, tears welling up in her eyes. "Mom, how can you say that? I love you, but this isn't fair." Lisa crossed her arms, her expression cold. "Life isn't fair, Jessica. I've done everything for you, and now it's time for you to step up." That was it. I had had enough. I stood up, anger boiling inside me. "This has gone too far, Lisa," I said, my voice firm. "You've been manipulating Jessica for months, trying to guilt her into giving you money. And now you're giving her an ultimatum? That's not love, that's emotional blackmail." Lisa's eyes widened in shock. "How dare you speak to me like that?" she snapped. "I've been nothing but kind to you, and this is how you repay me?" "You haven't been kind," I shot back. "You've been trying to take advantage of us from the moment we met. I'm not going to let you manipulate Jessica anymore." Jessica looked between us, her face pale and tear-streaked. "Alex is right, Mom," she said quietly. "I can't keep doing this. I love you, but I can't keep giving in to your demands." Lisa's face twisted with anger. "I see how it is," she said bitterly. "You've chosen him over me. Well, don't come crying to me when this relationship falls apart. I'm done." With that, she stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. I sat beside her, wrapping my arm around her shoulder. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never wanted it to come to this." "It's not your fault," I said softly. "You didn't do anything wrong." She was the one who crossed the line. We sat in silence for a long time, both of us processing what had just happened. It was painful to see Jessica so hurt, but I knew that standing up to Lisa was the right thing to do. We couldn't let her control our lives any longer. In the days following the confrontation, things were tense. Lisa refused to speak to Jessica, and the silence between them was deafening. It was clear that Lisa was trying to punish Jessica for not giving in to her demands, and it hurt Jessica deeply. Jessica tried calling her mom several times, but Lisa wouldn't answer. She sent text messages, apologizing for how things had ended, but Lisa never responded. It was heartbreaking to watch Jessica go through this, knowing that her mom was deliberately cutting her out of her life because she hadn't gotten what she wanted. "I don't understand how she can be so cold," Jessica said one night, tears streaming down her face. "She's my mom. How can she just cut me off like that?" I didn't have an easy answer for her. All I could do was be there for her, offering support and reminding her that she didn't deserve to be treated this way. Lisa's behavior was toxic, and while it was painful, I knew that Jessica was better off without her mom's manipulative influence in her life. We tried to focus on the positive: our relationship, our future, and the plans we were making together. We started looking for a new apartment, one that would feel like a fresh start for both of us. We spent more time with friends, surrounding ourselves with people who genuinely cared about us and wanted to see us happy. But even with all the good things happening, I could tell that the situation with her mom weighed heavily on Jessica.
She missed Lisa, despite everything, and part of her still hoped that they could mend their relationship.
Therapy and healing.
After a few weeks of emotional turmoil, Jessica decided to start therapy. She realized that her relationship with her mom had been unhealthy for years, and she needed help processing the hurt and manipulation she had experienced. I was so proud of her for taking that step. It wasn't easy to confront the truth about someone you love, but Jessica was determined to break the cycle. Therapy helped Jessica see the patterns of manipulation that had been present in her relationship with Lisa for years. She began to understand how her mom had conditioned her to feel guilty, to always put her needs above her own. It was eye-opening, and while it was painful to face, it was also freeing. Jessica started setting boundaries, not just with her mom, but with other people in her life as well. She realized that she didn't have to say yes to everyone, that she was allowed to put herself first. It was empowering to watch her grow, to see her reclaim her sense of self after years of being under her mom's thumb. I also started therapy, wanting to make sure that I was supporting Jessica in the best way possible. We went to a few couples therapy sessions as well, talking about how Lisa's influence had affected our relationship and how we could move forward together. It brought us even closer, and I knew that no matter what happened with Lisa, we were going to be okay. As time passed, things slowly began to improve. Jessica and I found a new apartment, a beautiful loft with big windows and lots of natural light. It felt like a fresh start, a place where we could build our life together without the shadow of Lisa hanging over us. We threw ourselves into decorating the apartment, making it feel like home. We picked out furniture together, spent weekends painting the walls, and even adopted a dog, a rescue mutt named Max, who instantly became part of our little family. It was a joyful time, and for the first time in months, I saw Jessica truly happy again. Lisa remained distant, refusing to reach out or acknowledge Jessica's attempts to reconnect. It hurt Jessica, but she was learning to accept that her mom might never change. Therapy helped her come to terms with the fact that Lisa's love had always been conditional, tied to what Jessica could do for her rather than who she was as a person. "I can't keep living my life trying to please her," Jessica said one night as we sat on the couch, watching Max chase his tail in the living room. "I have to live for me." It was a huge step for her, and I couldn't have been prouder. Jessica was finally putting herself first, something she hadn't been able to do for most of her life. Looking ahead. As we settled into our new life together, Jessica and I started talking about the future. We discussed getting married, starting a family, and all the things we wanted to do together. It was exciting to think about the possibilities, and for the first time in a long time, the future felt bright. We knew that Lisa might never be part of that future, but we were okay with that. We had each other, and that was enough. In the end, Jessica decided to meet with her mom, but on her own terms. She made it clear that if they were going to have a relationship, it would have to be healthy and respectful, with boundaries that Lisa would need to respect. It wasn't easy, and the road to rebuilding their relationship was long and complicated, but Jessica was determined to take control of her life. As for me, I couldn't have been prouder of the woman Jessica had become. She had grown so much over the past year, learning to stand up for herself and put her own needs first. Our relationship was stronger than ever, and I knew that no matter what challenges came our way, we could face them together. Lisa's attempts to manipulate and control us had ultimately failed, and while it had been a painful journey, it had also brought Jessica and me closer. We had learned to set boundaries, to prioritize our own happiness, and to protect each other from toxic influences. Life wasn't always easy, but it was ours. And in the end, that was all that mattered.